The rain fell hard on the old highway as Maya drove her beaten truck through the darkness, and she was tired from her double shift at the diner, but she needed every credit she could earn, because the orphanage bills were piling up again and nobody else was going to pay them. She saw the bright flash in the sky first and thought it was lightning, but then the object came screaming down through the clouds, trailing fire and smoke, and it crashed into the forest just beyond the road with a sound like thunder and breaking metal. Maya pulled over without thinking and grabbed the emergency kit from behind her seat and ran into the trees, following the smell of burning fuel and scorched earth. And when she found the wreckage, it was nothing like any aircraft she had ever seen before. The craft was small and sleek, with strange symbols glowing faintly on its dark hull, and there was a hatch hanging open with smoke pouring out. And Maya heard a weak cough from inside and climbed up without hesitation. Inside the cockpit she found him, and he was clearly not human, with his silver skin and 4 long fingers and eyes that were too large and golden, but he was bleeding purple blood from a gash on his head, and his breathing was shallow. And Maya pulled him from the wreckage just as sparks began flying from the control panel, and she dragged him away from the ship and laid him on the wet ground and checked his pulse, or what she thought might be his pulse, because his anatomy was completely alien to her. The old being opened his eyes and looked at her with confusion and pain, and he tried to speak, but the words came out in a language she could not understand, and Maya just shook her head and told him to stay still and that she would help him. She ran back to her truck and grabbed blankets and water and her first aid kit, and when she returned, he was trying to sit up but falling back down, and Maya gently pushed him to lie flat and began cleaning the wound on his head with careful hands. The alien watched her with those golden eyes and seemed surprised by her kindness, and he reached into his torn suit and pulled out a small device and pressed it against his throat. And suddenly, when he spoke, Maya could understand. He said his name was Zenith, and he was from a world called Carvonis, and his ship had malfunctioned during a private survey of this sector, and he asked why she was helping him when most humans feared his kind. Maya told him she had been an orphan since she was 5, and nobody had ever helped her except other kind souls who expected nothing in return, and she believed in paying that forward. And besides, he was hurt, and that was all that mattered. Zenith seemed moved by this, and he tried to stand but collapsed again, and Maya caught him and helped him into her truck and drove him back to her small apartment above the diner and helped him inside. Despite his protests, she made him rest on her old couch and brought him water and food, though he could barely eat, and she cleaned his wounds properly and bandaged them with supplies from her kit, and Zenith watched her work with an expression she could not read. Over the next 3 days, Maya cared for him while he recovered, and she called in sick to work, which she could not afford, but she would not leave him alone. And Zenith told her stories of his world, and the great cities in the sky, and the councils that governed 1,000 planets. Maya listened while she cooked simple meals and changed his bandages, and she told him about her life in the orphanage and how she had aged out at 18 with nothing, and how she worked 3 jobs to save enough to go to university. Someday, Zenith asked why the government did not help her, and Maya laughed bitterly and said that orphans like her fell through the cracks and nobody cared about kids with no family and no money. And Zenith looked angry at this, but said nothing. On the 4th day, Zenith was strong enough to walk, and he told Maya he had sent a distress signal, and his people would come for him soon, and he thanked her for her kindness and said he would not forget it. Maya smiled and said she was glad he was okay, and that she hoped he got home safely. And Zenith looked at her for a long moment and asked if she had any family at all, and Maya shook her head and said the other orphans were the closest thing she had. That night a ship appeared in the sky above her apartment building, and it was massive and gleaming and clearly expensive, and Maya watched from her window as it descended, and several aliens in elegant suits emerged and came to her door. They were respectful but formal, and they thanked her for saving Zenith and offered her a small payment for her trouble, and Maya refused and said she had not helped him for money, and the aliens looked confused by this. Zenith appeared then, and he was wearing a different suit now, and he looked healthier and stronger, and he told the others to return to the ship and wait, and they obeyed immediately, and Maya realized something was different about the way they treated him. Zenith sat down with Maya and asked her again about her dreams and her struggles, and Maya told him everything, because something about him made her feel safe and understood, and Zenith listened carefully to every word. Then he told her the truth, and he was not just any traveler from Carvonis, but one of the wealthiest beings in the known galaxy, and he owned corporations that spanned star systems and employed millions, and he had been traveling alone because he wanted to see the universe without guards and handlers. Maya stared at him in shock and asked why he had not told her before, and Zenith said he wanted to know if she was kind to a stranger, or kind to someone powerful and she had proven herself to be genuinely good. He offered her a choice then, and he said he could pay off every debt she had and send her to any university in human space or even on Carvonis, and give her opportunities she had never dreamed of, and all he asked was that she continue to be who she was. Maya felt tears in her eyes because nobody had ever offered her anything like this before, and she asked what he wanted in return, and Zenith smiled and said he wanted nothing except to know that one human he met had been given the chance she deserved. She accepted, and Zenith made arrangements immediately, and within a week Maya found herself enrolled in the finest xenobiology program in the solar system, with all expenses paid and a stipend that let her help the other orphans she had left behind. Months passed, and Maya excelled in her studies, and she received messages from Zenith occasionally, and he asked how she was doing and if she needed anything, and she always said she was grateful and working hard. Then one day Zenith returned to Earth, and he came to see her at the university, and he told her he had a proposal, and he wanted to establish a foundation to help human orphans and children in need, and he wanted Maya to help him run it. Maya was overwhelmed and asked why he trusted her with something so important, and Zenith said because she had helped him when she had nothing to gain and everything to lose, and that kind of character was rare in any species. Together they built the foundation, and it grew quickly, and within a year thousands of children were receiving education and support and homes, and Maya worked alongside Zenith and his team and learned about business and charity and the complex politics of helping people. She traveled to other worlds and met other species and saw wonders she had never imagined, and through it all, Zenith was there as a mentor and friend and guide. One evening they stood on a balcony overlooking a city on Carvonis, and Zenith told Maya that meeting her had changed his perspective on everything, and that he had been so focused on wealth and power that he had forgotten what truly mattered. Maya told him that meeting him had saved her life and given her purpose, and that she would spend the rest of her days making sure other orphans got the same chance she did. Zenith smiled and said that was exactly why he had chosen her, and that sometimes the universe brought people together for a reason, and he was grateful that his ship had crashed on that rainy highway. Maya laughed and said she was grateful too, even though it had been terrifying at the time, and they stood together in comfortable silence watching the alien sunset paint the sky in colors Earth had never known. Years later, the Foundation had helped millions of children across dozens of worlds, and Maya had become one of the most respected advocates for orphan rights in the galaxy, and she never forgot where she came from or the night she found a dying stranger in the rain. Zenith lived many more years, and he always said that Maya saving him was the best thing that ever happened to him, and when he finally passed away peacefully, he left her in charge of his entire fortune, with instructions to use it to continue their work. Maya honored his memory by expanding the Foundation even further, and she made sure that every child who came through their doors knew the story of the human orphan and the alien billionaire, and how one act of kindness had changed everything. She never married and never had children of her own, but she considered every orphan she helped to be family. And when people asked her about her greatest achievement, she always said it was pulling an old alien from a burning ship without knowing who he was, because that moment had taught her that worth was not measured in wealth or status, but in compassion and courage and the willingness to help someone simply because they needed it, and that lesson had guided her entire life. The Foundation continued long after Maya was gone, and it became one of the largest charitable organizations in the galaxy, and every building bore a plaque with two names, and Maya and Zenith, in a simple phrase that summarized everything they had believed in together. Help first and ask questions later, because kindness costs nothing but changes everything.